Time for Global Business Update. Michael Wilson joins us now from London. Great to have you. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning. Good morning. So it's all fairly mixed again, as you'd expect, really, as far as Asia Pacific's concerned. Basically, everybody there waiting for the US inflation figures, which we'll get in due course, and also a statement presumably from the Fed about which way they see interest rates going, or how quickly they see interest rates going. We all know which way they're actually going. South Korea's central bank raised interest rates by 0.5%, 50 basis points to 3% yesterday. As far as America's concerned, this kind of CNBC has it this morning as the once unthinkable ban on chip exports or chip export restrictions. But never mind what's thinkable or unthinkable. It's going to hobble China's chip industry without question. And it could also hit other parts of the supply chain as well. 4.8% of China's GDP is negatively affected by the COVID controls. Remember, they still have this zero COVID policy in China, and that's as of Monday. Mainland China reported 427 cases on Monday, more than 20 in more than 20 of the country's provincial regions. So, in other words, their continuing anti-zero COVID policy is continuing to crimp GDP. The IMF I know they're all meeting up in Washington this week, unsurprisingly cut global forecasts again for the year. Expects global growth to slow to 2.7% in 2023. GDP estimate remains steady at 3.2%, down from the 6% of GDP that was seen in 2021. Let's turn our attention to Iran and a rather depressing message from there, according to some economists. No hope for the future. Anti-government uprisings are continuing there, but it's not just about the hijab issue. It's about the fact that inflation has risen hugely there. It's about 30% right now, and it's also got a history of problems which are sparked not so much by the ruling parties of the country or the debates about religion and hijab, but mainly about the macro, the global, the socio-economic and political issues of having an economy which clearly works for some but doesn't work for others. Unemployment is 10% now, not that high, but high. Government debt of 40%, according to the IMF. Let's turn our attention now to Malaysia and similar sort of problems there, but what people are saying there, even though they have elections coming up, they're saying that because of government corruption, they should get the economy straight before they actually have elections. The Prime Minister there, Ismail Sabri Yaakob, dissolved the country's parliament on Monday. However, the former Prime Minister, Naif Razak, who was recently sentenced to 12 years in prison because of embezzling, being found guilty of embezzling billions of dollars from Malaysia's sovereign wealth fund. So sort out the corruption first, then have elections. Sort out the economy first, then have elections. That's the view overseas towards Malaysia, which is a considerable sized economy in that part of the world. Let's turn our attention to the United States. Stock futures are rising very, very gradually ahead of that inflation data, which we're going to get later. Both the markets did not very well yesterday. However, the Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said the US is doing well amid global economic uncertainty. Turn our attention to Uber and Lyft, to hail servicing. Now, there are new regulations as far as the gig economy is concerned. It's the usual kind of thing about whether the people that work through these companies or for these companies are actually employees of them or independent contractors. So the problem is that the regulations coming in are going to probably class these people as employees, which means the wage bills come up and therefore the share price is more expensive to run the companies, therefore the share price goes down. So what on earth is happening in Washington as far as the Bank of England and Andrew Bailey, the governor of the Bank of England, is talking about last night? Apparently, what was said yesterday, and we talked about this yesterday, is that the bond buying, which the Bank of England has decided to extend to gilt to index links gilts will apparently finish on Friday. Well, apparently, overnight the news is that they're a bit flexible on when this may end at the moment. So this is not really helping the markets get a grip on what's going on as far as the UK is concerned and its UK policy, economic policy is concerned. We know about the fiscal hell, which we talked about again yesterday. Now the Chancellor, the new Chancellor, Kwasi Kwarteng, has brought forward the date of this statement about where the fiscal future of the UK actually lies to October the 31st, which is in 2 or 3 weeks' time. Again, there were very sharp moves in the gilt market yesterday. Don't need to repeat all that. We talked about it at length yesterday. What on earth is going on? Why can't they be clear? Bottom line is that it looks like there's going to be a three weeks of jitteriness and so on. The IMF actually, quite surprisingly, last night, when asked if the UK was what was described by some journalists as a poster child for economic illiteracy, said certainly not. All it's doing is it just seems to be changing round very, very slightly. The UK economy unexpectedly shrank in August. GDP figures down, surprise 0.3 drop for that month there. And as far as the UK energy support package is concerned, it's been expanded very slightly as far as business is concerned. It only lasts until March, but it's going to be backdated until December, when businesses were actually taking out contracts then. And finally, the oil market, again, it's going to be fairly tight. The latest prediction, this is from UBS, saying that crude oil could hit $125 a barrel if the price cap is agreed, and it's apparently that simple according to UBS. So there we are, maybe $125 a barrel, maybe not. These are predictions in a very volatile market. That is the global view this morning.
Right, real quickly, Michael. First, I'll come to the UK. There are all indications that something definitely is wrong. And the BOE is probably trying to cover the shame of Mr. Kwasi Kwarteng this morning. Because the BOE claimed that, we didn't spend up to 65 billion to do those bond purchase buybacks. But now it's saying it's extending the window to reassure confidence in the market. What is really going on that these guys aren't telling us? And that's why we really want to see, that fiscal report by Kwasi Kwarteng, because a lot is going on underneath that nobody's saying. And that's why the markets are reacting that way. So everything is all settled yet for the UK. That's one. Number two, what will Joe Biden truly do to Saudi Arabia? Because they've called his bluff already with those cuts. What will he truly do? Is that a threat or something to Saudi Arabia at this point in time, in the middle of a war with Russia?
Well, I have no idea what Joe Biden can do as far as Saudi Arabia is concerned. I mean, they still take notice of the oil market. The United States appears to be self-sufficient as far as oil's concerned. I think, you look at these politicians and you wonder why on earth they come out with this kind of stuff. I suspect it's a lot to do with playing away, being seen to play away, being quite aggressive abroad as the midterms come up, which is not that far away, actually. What we're talking about, 6 weeks, if that, mid-November midterms. I suspect this is a lot of noise being calculated for that as well. As far as the oil price is concerned, I mean, I don't see, given that Saudi, of course, is OPEC's biggest producer, whether that has an effect on the United States, I simply don't know. I mean, it just seems like politicians making a lot of noise. As far as the UK is concerned, I think I agree with you. Well, what can you say? Mixed messages coming out of the IMF's meeting. At one stage yesterday, Andrew Bailey quite categorically said the bond buying program will finish on Friday, and yet overnight, I understand that officials have been saying, well, we might stretch it a little bit further. You're certainly absolutely right. The next 3 weeks is going to be absolutely crucial. Why they don't actually say what's going on, I've got no idea. But I suspect that things will only settle down one way or the other after we get that statement on October the 31st. So I think all we can do is actually, we'll be hearing all sorts of comments from all sorts of people. I think the trick is to keep above the noise and just look towards what the homework is actually going to be marked by the OBR. That seems to me the way forward. There will be a lot of noise and a lot of jitters. Woe betide those people who listen only to noise.
Well, you are quite right. Mixed messages coming from the Bank of England and Andrew Bailey. Could he possibly be responding to the request by the pensions and life savings industry stakeholders who categorically asked that there should be an extension after he had told them that they are just 3 more days to go? And is the Bank of England, in this particular instance, committing a policy error? Because it will appear that the extent of the disruption, caused by that emergency budget was underestimated, hence the nervousness in the market. But I also wanted to ask you about this windfall tax on energy profits. How will it help the Liz Truss administration? Will it help her to pacify the rebels? Will it help her, to get our prime ministership back on track? And then the IMF. The IMF seems to be talking from both sides of the mouth with regard to the economy in the UK. The other day when the statement was made by the World Bank and IMF that the mini budget would cause problems and that the UK was in a precarious situation. Now the same World Bank is now saying, the same IMF rather, is now saying, it looks like Kwasi Kwarteng's proposal would boost growth, even if it will affect prices going up. Is this a case of doubling down? Because when that intervention was made originally, many persons were concerned, that such an institution will comment that way on the economy of a G7 country.
I find the attitude of the IMF and the World Bank, as I've said very often on this program, very difficult to fathom. I think a lot of people, and it's not me saying this, a lot of commentators actually, and a lot of the markets actually wonder what on earth they are saying at the moment. It appears, and I said it to you this morning, it appears as though the IMF said yesterday that in their opinion, this 360 degree, as they put it, I mean, again, that's weird, isn't it? That's a full circle. I think they probably mean 180 degrees, but let's say they said 360. When I used to do geometry, 360 means all the way around. I think what they mean is 180, i.e. reverse direction of which way fiscal policy is going to go is a good thing. That's what they appeared to be saying yesterday. They're also adding to that by saying that we'll have the highest inflation of the G7 countries for much longer than people had actually thought. I'm confused. I bring this to you only because the IMF says it. I have my doubts, as you well know. And then, I mean, Doctor, you were saying World Bank, and then you said, oh no, sorry, I mean the IMF. I mean, which is which? They're both similarly Washington-based organizations, and what are they saying of value that you and I couldn't work out ourselves? I think it's absolutely essential that we get to the bottom of what's actually going on, what these forecasts are based on, and whether we can actually get somewhere onto solid ground so that we all know what we're actually thinking about. And you were asked, what was your first? That was
the cap, the proposed cap on energy profits.
Yeah. All right. I think once again, I think we've sort of talked about this before. I mean, what this is about is that it's a cap on renewables. Actually, the people who produce renewable energy because of the rise in prices. I mean, all these things sound good as well. If you're a politician, it's what people actually want to. Oh yeah, they're making so much money. It's about time we capped what they do. As I've said in the past, I mean, it sounds like a great idea, but you can only really do it once. And the companies themselves will be saying, yeah, okay, but if you want us to invest, I mean, this is what they say, isn't it? When the price of energy is low, you don't hear many calls for a windfall tax on the industry. It's only when the price is high. Now, what does that suggest to you? It suggests to me that it's a very, very handy kind of, oh yeah, we'll have a windfall tax on that. But it doesn't necessarily make long-term sense. And surely, given the targets, which I've not seen people walking back from the 2030 targets that were talked about in COP26, however stupid they now appear, I've not heard anybody going back on that. If they're going to be doing this, then this age of transition is upon us, and a windfall tax is not helping that transition. That's what I would say about it.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael. Now for business updates across the African continent, we have Rutu Sodiri here joining us.
Good morning. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning to all our viewers. Yeah, we begin with a new update on the Ways and Means extension from the central bank to the federal government of Nigeria. It's at 22, it's risen to 22 trillion naira as at August. And essentially, it's rising. It was 16 trillion August of 2021. So that's about a 35% climb. That's in total, right? Since this extension to government began. And so far this year, just year to date this year, 4.7 trillion is what has been extended. 2021 is about 4.4. The president, of course, presented the budget on Friday. We know it's a 20 trillion naira budget. Your deficit is 10.7 trillion. So when your revenues are challenged, it's expected that there might, of course, be more borrowing from the central bank. Let's look at the chart. There's a chart there which shows the rise going way back from 2014 and then going all the way up to where we are now at about 22 trillion naira. So look, that's not part of the debt, which is at 40 trillion. You add that, you think about the constraints on the federal government's ability to be able to, carry out capital projects. And this is just on one end. There's also, of course, the subsidies and so on and so forth. So that's where we are as far as the latest extension to the federal government is concerned. Aviation, the federal government has given the nod to international airports to be built, the Lekki, Ekpe. And so, well, as far as this is concerned, there's proponents and opponents. The proponents of this say, look, this is going to provide jobs. If you think about where the Dangote refinery is located, as for all the activities within that region, it makes sense for a new airport to be built there. Their estimates that is to bring in about, we have about 5 million travelers, passengers. Now, we put this together. This is looking at the just international flights from 2015 through to 2021. So we did about 4.8 million in 2015. It dipped to 4.2. Remember, we had a recession in 2016. So that dipped again to 3.9 million. Started to recover in 2018 as the economy also started to recover. 4.4 million in 2018, 4.6 million in 2020. Then you see that massive drop to 1.4 million because of COVID, and then we've had a bit of a recovery. On the other hand, does Lagos need a new airport? With respect to the roads, the access roads, and with the traffic.
Then they have to build those infrastructure.
Yeah, well, they built that first, before. And then there's of course the refinery and all this other.
Because you can't have a new airport on the Lekki axis and not have a train, for instance. At least on that, you should be able to have a train that could be a mode of evacuating people. So it's not just you have to build ancillary infrastructure.
What would you prioritize an airport for Lagos? If you think about Lagos, if we're sitting here and we're doing a town planning thing on this big letter A table now, right? When we're planning this and we're saying, what are the priorities for Lagos State? Does an international airport, is that up there?
No, it's not up there anyway.
You
need more infrastructure anyway. You need more infrastructure.
Speaking of infrastructure, remember we
covered... No, it's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing. It's good and bad. I mean, look, it's going to bring activity there. Yeah. There's jokes that Lekki will secede from Lagos if they get a new airport. Speaking of new infrastructure, remember the terminal, the new international wing that was commissioned by the president back in March. It's not much patronage at that new wing.
Why?
Because the apron, the design, there's apparently a design issue here. And then the apron for this new wing, and that apron is, of course, the space where planes land, where they are parked, and so on and so forth, does not allow for wide body aircraft. So your Qatar Airways, your Air Peace, your British Airways, Emirates, they are still using the old terminal because there seems to be a design flaw. Here's a quote from Cindy Foster. We've had her on the show on the Global Business Report a few times to talk about the aviation sector. She says it was clear that there would be space constraints before the terminal was even built. You can't just situate a terminal anywhere you like. That's what master plans are for. I'm not even sure if anyone is surprised at this point. I'm tired of Nigeria being the laughingstock of the world. We already know what to do here, but we struggle to do things properly. The work-around culture is the dominant culture, not the pursuit of excellence and high standards. So there's we commissioned it in March. It was officially opened about a month or two ago, and just those wide-body aircraft are just not able to fit there, and that's the issue there. To tech, Google had its Cloud Next event yesterday. It was a lot of tech events. Facebook debuted the new Quest Pro headset, $1,500 by the way. New cloud regions is what Google announced. You'll see South Africa there at the bottom there. So I mean, in addition to Sweden, Greece, Norway, and Australia, your cloud hub are basically regions that are extensions of cloud infrastructure that Google will be using to house data and allow for remote work and be secure and be hedge against cybersecurity and so on and so forth. So this now for South Africa now, you've got a Google Cloud region there, you've got Microsoft Azure, you've got Oracle, you've got Amazon Web Services. So this is building up. Another interesting chart from here, as far as developers are concerned, while we're watching the event, this is one of the presentations they made. They said there's going to be a shortage of full-time developers will increase from 1.4 million in 2021 to 4 million in 2025. What does that mean in terms of demand for software developers around the world? Does that fuel the jackpot culture here? Or, since we're talking about cloud and cloud allows you to work remotely, does that mean more job opportunities for software developers in Africa that now will have the chance to work remotely? So, pretty interesting implications there as far as global developers are concerned.
I mean, let me jump on that, and that's a great possibility. If we tap into the developer space, we have a scheme where across 774 local governments, we can make 5 to 10 developers in the course of every year. In the space of 5 years, we'll have ample developers in this country that will be able to take on those jobs, because those jobs are the job of the future. And because of cloud and the fact that you can work remotely, so you don't need to be on-premise any longer, there's a lot of possibility. Knock-on effect of that, a very good developer earns between 20K to about 80K thereabout.
Tell the people what currency you're referring to.
Yeah, US dollars.
Okay, all right.
Not Naira.
Okay.
If we get top of the range developer, maybe about 500,000 or 1 million of them, we can add so much forex to this economy by developers. In fact, if my maths is right, we can add millions and millions of USD into developers. Because when you look at it, and these people will be working in situ in the country, because when you look at it, we've had a trade deficit of over 160 I think, million USD.
All right.
I mean, billion USD in the last about 10 years. How that hole is being filled with USD is by the diaspora remittances.
Yep.
So they're averaging about 20 billion every year diaspora remittances, and the money is coming in and it's blocking the shortfall of the trade deficit. So it just shows you the capacity talent can provide when you bring those talents in. And that's why the federal government should tap into this, have a scheme, have incubator hubs in 774 local governments where you can train developers, replicate the skills, partner with these foreign companies and let them do a lot here. I'm not happy that a cloud center has been taken to South Africa. I feel we have the capacity in this country, but if we have those liaisons and associations and we show the willingness, push it a little bit further, we can do a lot more. That's why elections matters in 2023.
Speaking of elections, real quick, I was looking at some research reports. Do you know that you can use cloud computing to secure votes?
Definitely. Definitely.
INEC theoretically could get an Azure, a Google,
an Oracle
to secure. But we're not even having that conversation.
You can't get Azure, and trust me.
Even diaspora
I've got people. I've got a great company that is doing that as we speak in Nigeria. They're called Town Talk.
Yeah.
all right, incident reportage.
Yeah.
They've got a dashboard system called Area.
To monitor
All right?
these things, right?
They are monitoring real time what is happening in election polling units, votes. If people like INEC can talk to companies like that, they can do a lot more. Town Talk,
Right.
you can check them out online.
Right.
Real-time data, even with security, even with pipelines.
And diaspora voters diaspora Nigerians can vote because they've got election, they've got an internet there, and so and you can secure that.
Rotos,
I mean,
you know when it comes to tech, my engines start running. Don't excite me, Dr. Abati. Don't excite me,
Yes.
Rotos. I can go on all day.
Yeah.
A comment on the airline matter that you brought up in order.
Yeah.
And it's as follows. What has happened at the new terminal of the Murtala Mohammed International Airport is just the typical Nigerian story.
Yes, sir.
I don't think it was one Baba Kabiru that they got to come and construct the terminal.
Yeah.
You know, architects must have been involved.
Of course.
It wasn't done through direct labor.
Yeah.
And, you know, there was a design. Engineers were part of it. Some buildings were demolished.
Yes, they were.
Okay,
Yeah.
we spent so much money designing a new terminal at the airport, and then, of course, it's of no use. If you are bringing maybe a Boeing 787 or you were bringing an Airbus, then, of course, you can't park at that wing. So the danger, therefore, is that the place will be underutilized. It's a failure of planning and the misplacement of priorities. And that is how we treat so many things in this country. Have you been there before? Well, I have been. It looks really beautiful. You know, it reminds you of their new terminal that they have in Accra, Ghana,
Yes.
at the Kotoka International Airport.
Yes.
Now, that works very well.
It does.
When that was completed, many Nigerians were taking pictures. They were excited, you know, about the efficiency of the place. When I, went through this new terminal, my concern, I'm not an architect, was not about, the efficiency, the usefulness of the space. It was about the beauty.
Yeah.
Because it looks really beautiful. But I was concerned that, okay, the Ghanaians have been maintaining their own for more than 2 years.
Indeed.
So in addition to this design space, I hope even when the people who are able to use this space, if they visit the place in another 1 year,
Right.
that the place will still be as beautiful as it appears. So these are dimensions. Poor design, poor thinking, poor execution, poor maintenance. So it's a Nigerian story you'll find there. However, I will not say Lagos does not need the Lekki
Dying to hear your
airport.
thoughts on this, Doctor. Yes.
Because it's not that Lekki, Ajah, Epe axis that will benefit from it. Even the people of Ogun State will benefit from it, and it will offer, additional opportunities for travel. And don't forget that the Lagos State government is excited about it because the Adisirika was at the Enyingbeti Summit yesterday. That was where he handed over the approval documents to the Lagos State governor. The number one subject in Babajide Sanwo-Olu's agenda for Lagos State is transportation.
Yes.
The T.
Themes.
Themes.
Yeah.
The T is for transportation.
Right.
And his administration has consistently made the point that what they want to work on is a multimodal transportation network to ease the congestion in Lagos, to facilitate travel and economic activities, which is the focus of the Enyingbeti Summit, which has been revived after it was abandoned for some years. So he's talking about rail. We're still waiting for that those red and blue lines.
Thank you for mentioning it.
He's talking about waterways,
Yes.
transportation. He's talking about constructing a fourth, mainland bridge.
Yep.
And now he's talking about this airport, which had been part of the original master plan since the return to civilian rule. So if they can pull it off, it will be useful, and open others. And don't forget that in neighboring Ogun State, there's also the plan to complete a cargo airport.
Yes.
So all of this would open up, would ease congestion, will provide opportunities. But as with all things Nigeria, are we going to manage them well, even if we achieve them? And are these not political promises? Since this is election season.
Indeed, sir. Yes.
Thank you, Rotus.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I think we'll stop there.